Daniel Harper thought he had found the perfect woman in Vanessa Cole, until she shot him in the head. But against all odds, Daniel survived, and his shocking testimony would expose a deadly secret no one saw coming. Daniel Harper was a man who seemed to have everything one could wish for. At 35, he had built a successful career as a real estate agent in the charming city of Charleston, South Carolina. His days were filled with meetings, showings, and negotiations, and his nights with quiet dinners in his modern penthouse overlooking the city. Daniel was known for his easy smile, friendly nature, and generous heart. Friends described him as someone who always put others first, often going out of his way to help those in need. Despite his busy schedule, Daniel had a close, knit group of friends who admired his dedication and the way he treated people with kindness. One afternoon, Daniel found himself at a luxury car dealership, browsing the newest models for his next vehicle. It was there that he first noticed Vanessa Cole. She was captivating, tall, elegant, with perfectly styled hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Vanessa was dressed impeccably, her heels clicking against the showroom floor as she walked confidently among the cars. To Daniel, she was unlike anyone he had ever met before. There was a mysterious aura about her that drew him in, making him forget about the cars and focus solely on her. Their meeting seemed almost like fate. Vanessa approached Daniel with an air of familiarity, introducing herself with a warm smile that made him feel instantly comfortable. Though they had only just met, she seemed to know exactly what to say, and Daniel found himself captivated by her charm and confidence. Over the next few weeks, their encounters became more frequent. They dined at upscale restaurants, attended art galleries, and shared stories late into the night. Vanessa spoke about her career as an interior designer, painting a picture of a creative woman who loved beauty and style. Daniel, for the first time in years, felt truly alive and excited about the future. Within 3 months, Vanessa had moved into Daniel's penthouse. Her presence transformed the space. Designer furniture replaced his simple decor, and the rooms were filled with vibrant colors and elegant touches. Daniel welcomed the change, happy to share his life with someone he believed was genuine and caring. Friends and family noticed the difference too. Daniel was happier, more confident, and more willing to take risks. Yet, beneath Vanessa's glamorous exterior, there was an underlying tension that few people could see. Vanessa rarely spoke about her past. When asked about her previous relationships or where she grew up, she gave vague answers or quickly changed the subject. Daniel, deeply in love and trusting, never pressed for details. He believed in second chances and was convinced that Vanessa's mysterious silence was simply a sign of a complicated past she wanted to leave behind. Her days were spent shopping in the city's finest boutiques, attending charity events, and posting photos on social media that showcased their perfect life together. Her followers admired her glamorous lifestyle and enviable wardrobe, but none of them knew the truth behind the carefully constructed facade. Vanessa seemed to have no interest in contributing to Daniel's business or household. Instead, she focused on appearances and maintaining control over every detail of their shared life. As the months went by, Vanessa began to take on a more commanding role in Daniel's world. She managed his finances subtly, often insisting on accompanying him to the bank or reviewing his bills. She convinced him to sign legal documents that allowed her access to his accounts, assuring him it was just for convenience. Daniel, overwhelmed by work and wanting to make Vanessa happy, agreed without much thought. Friends grew concerned. They noticed that Daniel was less himself, more distracted, often anxious and less social. They warned him to be careful, but Daniel brushed off their worries, trusting Vanessa completely. The dynamic between them changed further when Vanessa introduced Daniel to her friends, a small group of people who lived lavishly but had questionable backgrounds. Daniel felt uneasy around them, sensing a world he didn't understand creeping into his life. But Vanessa reassured him, saying they were business contacts and that Daniel should broaden his horizons. Slowly, Daniel was pulled deeper into Vanessa's world, one that seemed glamorous but held secrets in its shadows. Despite the signs, Daniel remained devoted. He often told himself that love required trust and forgiveness, that everyone had flaws, and that Vanessa's past didn't matter as much as the life they were building together. He believed she loved him, that she was with him because of who he was, not because of his money or success. This belief blinded him to the small inconsistencies, The late-night phone calls Vanessa quickly hid, the unexplained expenses on his credit cards, and the way she sometimes disappeared for hours without explanation. Vanessa's true intentions, however, were far from innocent. Behind her dazzling smile and designer clothes, she was carefully planning a future that involved more than just love and companionship. She had calculated every move, slowly gaining control of Daniel's life and assets. Her charm was a mask for a far more dangerous game, one that would soon shock everyone who thought they knew her and Daniel. The perfect girlfriend, the woman who seemed to have stepped out of a dream, was quietly laying the groundwork for a betrayal that would almost cost Daniel his life. In the months ahead, the thin line between love and deception would shatter, revealing a dark and chilling truth no one saw coming. But for now, Daniel remained unaware of the storm gathering just beneath the surface, trusting in a future that Vanessa was ready to destroy. Vanessa's charm was more than just surface deep. It was a carefully crafted persona designed to manipulate those around her. Beneath the glittering facade of designer dresses and expensive dinners, she was a woman with secrets and a motive that would shock everyone who believed in the fairy tale she presented. What nobody realized was that Vanessa's life, before Daniel, was tangled with lies, debts, and desperation. Before Charleston, Vanessa had moved from city to city, leaving behind broken relationships and whispers of trouble. In her previous hometown, she had been linked to a failed business venture and an accusation of fraud that mysteriously vanished from court records. Few details about the case were ever made public, but rumors swirled about money disappearing and people being cheated. Vanessa's ability to erase the chapter of her life was just the beginning of the web of deception she spun. Once she met Daniel, she zeroed in on her target with precision. She understood exactly what she wanted: his money, his assets, and a way out of the financial hole she had dug for herself. Vanessa was drowning in debt, much of it caused by a hidden gambling addiction she desperately tried to keep under wraps. Late nights at casinos, online betting, and risky loans had left her owing thousands to dangerous people. One of those people, a ruthless loan shark, was growing impatient and making threats. Vanessa's options were running out fast. To secure her escape, Vanessa started weaving her plan carefully. The first step was gaining Daniel's trust to the point where he would make her his legal heir. She began by planting the idea of future financial planning into casual conversations, always framed as responsible and caring. She suggested that Daniel increase his life insurance policy, not because she wanted money, but to protect their future, she said. Daniel, trusting and unsuspecting, agreed without question. Vanessa pushed Daniel further. She convinced him to make her a co-owner on several bank accounts and credit cards, explaining it as a practical step for emergencies. At first, Daniel hesitated, but Vanessa's persistence and charm wore down his doubts. She also encouraged him to revise his will, pushing him gently to name her as the sole beneficiary. To Daniel, it seemed like a natural step for a couple planning to spend their lives together. What he didn't realize was that Vanessa was slowly cutting out everyone else from his life and finances. She also played emotional games. At one point, Vanessa staged a pregnancy scare. She claimed she might be expecting, hinting at the possibility of a child. Daniel, overwhelmed by joy and nervousness, began talking about marriage and a family. He even bought an engagement ring, planning a romantic proposal during a trip to Mexico they had discussed. His friends thought he had finally found true love. But Vanessa's dreams were far different. The engagement and pregnancy were tools to pressure Daniel into deeper financial commitment, not signs of genuine love. Behind closed doors, she was frantic, trying to cover her gambling debts and fend off the loan shark's threats. She had started transferring money into offshore accounts, hiding large sums from Daniel. Every step she took was calculated to secure the largest possible payout if something were to happen to Daniel. As Vanessa's control grew, Daniel's world began to shrink. He stopped seeing his old friends as often and became more dependent on Vanessa's guidance. Her influence stretched into every corner of his life, from how he spent his money to whom he trusted. She was the center of his universe, and she made sure of it. Yet, cracks started to show. Daniel noticed strange charges on his credit cards and found himself blocked from accessing certain accounts. Vanessa's excuses were vague but convincing. She said she was managing things to keep their finances organized. The people around Daniel grew more worried. His friends and family whispered about how Vanessa seemed to have an unhealthy grip on him, about her lavish spending and secretive behavior. They urged Daniel to be cautious, to look deeper into the woman he loved. But Daniel, blinded by affection and hope, refused to see the warning signs. He wanted to believe in the perfect future Vanessa promised. Behind the scenes, Vanessa was preparing for the next phase of her plan. Her debts were mounting, and the pressure from the loan shark was intensifying. She knew that waiting too long could end badly. The insurance policy was the golden ticket, a way to pay off her debts and start fresh without anyone asking questions. The cold reality was that Vanessa saw Daniel not as a partner, but as a means to an end. Her affection was a mask for greed and survival. She was ready to cross a line no one expected. The glamorous girlfriend who had captured Daniel's heart was quietly setting a trap that would soon snap shut with devastating consequences. As the days went by, Vanessa's tension grew. Her once carefree demeanor was replaced by nervous glances and secretive phone calls. She avoided Daniel's closest friends and refused to discuss their future beyond the surface level. But she maintained her role flawlessly, never letting suspicion slip. What Daniel couldn't see was the storm brewing behind Vanessa's beautiful smile. A storm that would change their lives forever and reveal the true price of love when it's mixed with greed and desperation. The perfect relationship was just a thin veil covering a dangerous plan. A plan that was about to explode in the most shocking way imaginable. The night everything changed started like any other evening in Daniel Harper's penthouse. The city lights cast a soft glow through the floor to ceiling windows, and the gentle hum of traffic below filled the silence. Daniel had just returned from a late client meeting and was looking forward to a quiet night with Vanessa. He was unaware that the moment he stepped inside, his life was about to take a dark and unexpected turn. Vanessa greeted him at the door with a warm smile, dressed in a stunning red dress that seemed out of place for the calm night she promised. She led him inside, where candles flickered softly on the dining table, and a bottle of expensive wine waited, carefully chilled. Everything looked perfect on the surface, an intimate, romantic setting designed to make Daniel feel special and loved. But beneath the glow of the candles, a storm was brewing. Vanessa urged Daniel to sit on the couch, telling him to close his eyes for a surprise she had prepared. Trusting her completely, Daniel complied without hesitation. He had no idea that the moment his eyes closed, Vanessa's plans would take a deadly turn. Seconds later, a sharp, deafening sound shattered the calm. A single gunshot echoed through the penthouse. The bullet struck Daniel in the head. Blood sprayed across the walls and the luxurious furniture. Vanessa dropped the gun immediately and screamed into her phone, falsely claiming that Daniel had attempted to take his own life. Her voice was filled with panic and grief as she cried out for help. When the paramedics arrived, they found Daniel unconscious, barely breathing, and bleeding profusely. The bullet had entered the side of his head, shattered part of his jaw, and exited through his cheek. Despite the severe injury, Daniel was still alive. The medical team rushed him to the hospital, where he was immediately taken into emergency surgery. Doctors warned that his chances of survival were slim, only about 20%, and even fewer if he managed to live, given the damage to his brain and nerves. Vanessa continued to play the part of the grieving girlfriend perfectly. She told police and reporters that Daniel had been struggling with depression, painting a picture of a man pushed to the edge by unseen battles. She cried openly in front of the media, spoke about his kindness, and described how she had been trying to support him through dark times. To the outside world, it seemed like a tragic suicide attempt, an unfortunate moment of despair. No one suspected the truth behind Vanessa's tears. She even began making funeral arrangements, speaking about memorials and tributes, as if Daniel's life was already over. Friends and family, heartbroken and shocked, rallied around her. Many believed she was the victim of a cruel fate. But Vanessa's carefully constructed story started to crack as detectives dug deeper. The investigation uncovered several suspicious details that contradicted her claims. Surveillance footage from the building showed no sign of forced entry, raising questions about how the gun came to be in Daniel's penthouse. The firearm used in the shooting was registered under Vanessa's name, linking her directly to the crime. Police also discovered her recent internet searches, which included phrases like, "How to shoot someone without getting caught," and "staging a suicide." Financial records revealed that Vanessa had transferred a large sum of money to an offshore account just 2 days before the shooting, a move that looked like she was trying to hide assets. While Vanessa worked hard to maintain her facade, Daniel's condition remained critical. He was placed in a medically induced coma to give his brain the best chance to heal. Doctors warned that if he woke, he might suffer permanent brain damage, lose his ability to speak, or never regain full memory. Despite the grim prognosis, Daniel's body fought to survive. Weeks passed with no clear signs of improvement, and many had begun to accept the possibility that he might never wake up. Yet, beneath the surface, Daniel's mind was slowly regaining awareness. His brain started to piece together fragments of memories. Moments before the shooting, Vanessa's strange behavior and the cold look in her eyes that day, the turning point came unexpectedly. After nearly 3 weeks in the hospital, Daniel opened his eyes. The room was quiet, filled with the sterile scent of medicine and the soft beeping of monitors. His speech was slow and slurred, but his mind was sharp enough to understand what had happened. Daniel's first thoughts were confusing, but then clarity hit. He remembered Vanessa, the gun, the betrayal. Despite the pain and weakness, he knew one thing with certainty: Vanessa had tried to kill him. This shocking revelation set the wheels of justice in motion. Daniel's memory, though fragile, became the most powerful testimony against Vanessa. As he slowly regained strength, he began to communicate with the police, recounting every detail he could remember. His story dismantled Vanessa's false narrative piece by piece. The night that was supposed to be a loving surprise turned into a nightmare, a brutal attempt to end Daniel's life for reasons no one could have imagined. What Vanessa believed would be the final act in her scheme had failed, and the man she tried to kill was now awake and determined to speak the truth. The shock of Daniel surviving a gunshot to the head and living to testify stunned everyone involved in the case. It transformed the investigation from a suspected suicide into a chilling story of attempted murder and betrayal. Vanessa's plan had backfired in the worst way, exposing her lies and greed to the world. As Daniel fought to recover physically and mentally, the courtroom battle loomed ahead. His survival was not just a miracle of medicine. It was a chance to bring justice and reveal the dark secrets hidden beneath the glamorous life Vanessa had created. Daniel's awakening sent shockwaves through the investigation and changed everything. Though his speech was slow and slurred, and his movements were weak, his mind was alert and determined. The doctors were amazed by his progress, but what truly mattered was the clarity he brought to the case. From his hospital bed, Daniel began to piece together the events leading up to that fateful night, and his memories became the key evidence that would unravel Vanessa's carefully constructed story. Detectives returned to the penthouse with renewed urgency. The surveillance footage, once dismissed as inconclusive, was examined frame by frame. It showed Vanessa arriving early that evening, carrying a small bag. No sign of forced entry appeared, confirming that whoever was inside had to be trusted by Daniel. The gun, registered in Vanessa's name, was found hidden in a drawer behind the sofa where Daniel had been shot. Investigators discovered that Vanessa had researched methods of shooting someone to make it appear as suicide, deepening suspicion of her involvement. Financial records revealed disturbing details. Just 2 days before the shooting, Vanessa transferred a large sum of money to an offshore account. Further analysis showed that she had accumulated thousands of dollars in gambling debts and was under pressure from a loan shark. This painted a clear motive: financial desperation. The money she sought was not just for comfort. It was a lifeline to escape dangerous debts she could no longer handle. As Daniel regained the ability to write, he cooperated fully with the police. He described the surprise Vanessa had planned: the wine, the candles, the moment she told him to close his eyes. Then the sudden, terrible sound of the gunshot. He recalled the sharp pain, the blood, and the look on Vanessa's face. Panic mixed with something colder. A flash of triumph she quickly masked with feigned horror. With Daniel's testimony, the narrative shifted from a tragic suicide attempt to a deliberate act of attempted murder. Prosecutors built their case on the evidence of Vanessa's motive, the forensic proof from the scene, her suspicious financial activities, and Daniel's eyewitness account. Vanessa's defense claimed innocence, insisting that Daniel was confused or that he had somehow caused the injury himself. They portrayed her as a devoted partner devastated by tragedy. But the jury was not convinced. The pile of evidence against Vanessa was overwhelming. Witnesses spoke of Vanessa's lavish lifestyle and secretive behavior. Friends of Daniel testified about how Vanessa had isolated him from his support network and how she had pushed him to change his financial documents. Experts explained the nature of the gunshot wound and the trajectory of the bullet, aligning perfectly with Daniel's account. Throughout the trial, Vanessa remained composed, wearing expensive suits and maintaining a calm demeanor. She denied the charges, spinning stories about stress and mental health struggles. Yet behind the courtroom's polished veneer, cracks began to appear. Her credibility eroded as prosecutors revealed her past. The missing fraud case, the gambling addiction, and the offshore accounts. The glamorous image she had cultivated was stripped away, exposing a calculating woman driven by greed. Daniel's testimony was the emotional heart of the trial. Despite the physical and emotional pain he still carried, he spoke with honesty and courage. His slow but steady words painted a picture of betrayal and survival. The jury saw not just a victim but a man who refused to be silenced, who fought back against the woman he once trusted. Outside the courtroom, the public followed the case with fascination and horror. Headlines screamed about the gold digger girlfriend who tried to kill. Social media buzzed with opinions and debates. Many expressed sympathy for Daniel and outrage at Vanessa's actions. The case became a cautionary tale about trust, greed, and the dangers hidden behind perfect smiles. When the jury finally returned, the verdict was unanimous. Vanessa was found guilty of attempted first-degree murder, fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. The judge sentenced her to 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence sent a clear message: no one was above the law, no matter how convincing their lies. Daniel's life, though forever changed, began to take a new direction. He sold the penthouse and moved away from Charleston, seeking a fresh start far from the shadows of betrayal. Determined to turn his pain into purpose, he founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping victims of domestic violence and financial exploitation. Through his work, he gave voice to those who, like him, had survived unimaginable hardships. Though the physical scars remained, Daniel's spirit grew stronger. He often spoke about how surviving the shooting was a second chance, a rare gift that he would not waste. His story became one of hope, resilience, and justice. He reminded others to be cautious, to trust wisely, and to listen to their instincts. Vanessa, meanwhile, remained behind bars, her glamorous life reduced to cold prison walls. Her name became a warning, a symbol of greed's destructive power and the dangers of loving the wrong person. Her story was told and retold, not just as a crime, but as a lesson about how appearances can deceive and how the truth, no matter how hidden, eventually comes to light. In the end, Daniel Harper's survival was more than a miracle of medicine. It was the key to uncovering a dark secret, delivering justice, and reminding the world that sometimes the most dangerous betrayals come from those closest to us. The man who had been shot in the head lived to testify, and his voice changed everything. The courtroom was packed on the day Vanessa Cole's fate was decided. The case had gripped the nation, with people following every twist and turn, captivated by the story of a glamorous woman accused of trying to kill her wealthy boyfriend for money. Vanessa sat at the defendant's table, her expression carefully neutral, dressed in a sharp black suit and dark sunglasses, shielding herself from the intense scrutiny of the courtroom. She remained composed, but beneath the surface, tension and uncertainty gnawed at her. Daniel Harper entered the courtroom in a wheelchair, still recovering from the gunshot wound that had forever altered his life. The injury had left lasting physical damage, affecting his speech and facial muscles, but his determination to seek justice had not weakened. Supported by his friends and family, Daniel's presence sent a powerful message. Despite everything, he was alive, and he would not be silenced. The trial began with opening statements from the prosecution, laying out the shocking details of Vanessa's plan. They described her manipulative tactics, how she had slowly taken control of Daniel's finances, pressured him to increase his life insurance, and staged a fake pregnancy scare to push him into deeper commitment. The prosecutors painted Vanessa as a cold, calculating gold digger who had no qualms about destroying the man she claimed to love. Vanessa's defense team tried to cast doubt on the evidence. They argued that Daniel's injuries were the result of a suicide attempt, that Vanessa had been a supportive partner overwhelmed by grief. They questioned Daniel's memory and the reliability of his testimony, claiming the trauma had clouded his recollection. Yet, Each defense point was met with counterarguments supported by facts, surveillance footage, financial records, and forensic analysis that all pointed squarely at Vanessa's guilt. Throughout the trial, Daniel testified with courage and honesty. His voice, though sometimes shaky, carried the weight of someone who had been through unimaginable pain. He described the night of the shooting in painstaking detail. The candles, the wine, the moment Vanessa told him to close his eyes, and the sudden gunshot that nearly ended his life. His testimony was not just a recounting of events. It was a testament to survival and the human will to overcome betrayal. Witnesses supported Daniel's story, including friends who spoke about Vanessa's controlling behavior and secretive financial dealings. Experts explained the medical evidence, confirming that the gunshot wound was consistent with an attack, not a suicide. The jury saw a pattern of deception, manipulation, and greed that Vanessa had woven around Daniel. As the trial unfolded, Vanessa's carefully maintained image unraveled. The media highlighted her past, her history of fraud allegations, her gambling addiction, and the offshore bank accounts she used to hide money. These revelations shocked many who had admired her glamorous lifestyle, exposing the dark side of her charm. After weeks of intense proceedings, the jury retired to deliberate. The courtroom was silent, the tension palpable. Everyone waited, knowing the verdict would change lives forever. When the jury returned, the foreperson stood and read the decision. Vanessa Cole was found guilty of attempted first-degree murder, fraud, and conspiracy. The verdict was unanimous. The judge sentenced Vanessa to 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence was harsh but fitting, reflecting the severity of her crimes and the betrayal she had committed. As the gavel fell, Vanessa's face finally showed a flicker of emotion, perhaps regret, or the crushing reality of what lay ahead. For Daniel, the verdict was a bittersweet victory. He had won justice, but the scars, both physical and emotional, remained. The shooting had changed him forever, leaving lasting damage to his speech and facial nerves. Yet, he refused to let the trauma define him. Determined to rebuild his life, Daniel sold the penthouse that held so many painful memories and moved away from Charleston, seeking peace and a fresh start. More than that, Daniel found purpose in his survival. He established a non-profit organization dedicated to helping victims of domestic violence and financial abuse. People like him who had suffered at the hands of those they trusted most. Through his work, he raised awareness about the dangers of manipulation and greed, encouraging others to speak out and seek help. Daniel often spoke about his experience publicly, sharing his story with honesty and hope. He emphasized the importance of trusting one's instincts, being cautious in relationships, and understanding that love should never come at the cost of safety or dignity. His message resonated with many, turning his personal tragedy into a beacon of strength and resilience. Vanessa, meanwhile, adjusted to life behind bars. The luxurious lifestyle she once enjoyed was gone, replaced by the cold reality of prison walls and lost freedom. Her name became a cautionary tale, proof that greed and deception can destroy lives, but that justice can prevail. Prison guards and fellow inmates came to know her story, often warning newcomers about the dangers of manipulation and betrayal. Despite the distance and pain, Daniel never forgot the lessons of his ordeal. He remained grateful to be alive and determined to honor the second chance he had been given. His survival was more than a medical miracle. It was a symbol of hope and justice. He proved that even the darkest betrayals could be overcome and that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, would eventually come to light. The story of Vanessa Cole and Daniel Harper was told and retold, not just as a crime but as a powerful reminder. It showed the fragile line between love and danger, trust and betrayal. It revealed how appearances could deceive and how important it was to look beyond the surface. In the end, Daniel's voice, the voice of a man who had been shot in the head but lived to testify, changed everything. It brought justice for a crime almost hidden in darkness and reminded the world that survival was possible, even in the face of the most shocking betrayal. His life was forever marked by the past, but his future was shaped by courage, strength, and the unyielding desire to live and help others do the same.